Parliament has become a gutter, full of sleaze which overflows into the streets. An accumulation of corruption which could foam up any day. They had a choice to follow in the footsteps of decent people. Instead, they followed corruption and didn't realize that the trail led to a precipice. The country is beating itself. Maybe it can't be saved. We have a signal now. When Boris hits the screen, it's not just an interview, it's a warning.
Let's talk about that, because Thursday marked 6 years since the UK voted to leave the European Union. Is the UK better off than it was 6 years ago when you left the EU?
It is.
This is Boris Johnson, and this is an interview he's having with CNN, one of the largest media outlets in the United States. And you're going to see why I've brought up the whole thing with Boris and Trump and the Joker a little bit later on, but first let's dissect what he's just said there, Brexit being a success. It's funny how he says that because a poll came out from Wales Online saying that almost half of Brits said Brexit had made their daily life worse. And that is going to translate into some really interesting statistics. Redfield and Wilton's Strategies, along with UK and a Changing Europe, ran several polls asking Brits what they felt about Brexit. And as you can see here, from the age of 54 all the way down to the age of 18, they're not really in favour of it. And especially with those under the age of 44, and especially with those between the age of 18 and 34, because essentially they've had their rights taken away from them, whilst being told it's for their own benefit. What a joke. But the interest went further, because when they ran a second poll asking if he would rejoin the EU, 53% of those who were polled wanted to rejoin the European Union. So it's fascinating to hear Boris Johnson turn around and say that everything's going great and superb and it's fantastic, it's the best thing ever. It's just another joke. Let's just have a listen to Susanna Reid, who is a TV presenter and journalist, who takes Boris Johnson to task by giving him two examples of two groups of people who are suffering immeasurably as a result of Boris's government and Brexit.
You have said that individuals have to make choices about what they spend their money on. You're on record as saying that. And I want to ask you then about a number of our viewers who have got in touch with us about the choices that they're making. Elsie is 77. She's a widow and she's a pensioner who lives in a council house. She receives a pension of £170 a week. Her energy bills have gone, get this, from £17 a month to £85 a month.
Yeah.
She will pay an additional £816 a year. To cut down on spending, Prime Minister, Elsie has now resorted to eating one meal a day. She's 77 years old. She's losing weight. She goes to the supermarket at the end of the day to buy yellow sticker discounted items. She gets up early in the morning to use her Freedom bus pass to stay on buses all day to avoid using energy at home. What else should Elsie cut back on, in your opinion?
I don't want Elsie to cut back on anything. Let's talk about Elsie and what we're doing. And just to remind you that the 24-hour Freedom bus pass was something that I actually introduced. Just
marvellous. So Elsie should be grateful to you for her bus pass. But what else should she cut back on?
What a joke. And the worst bit is, he seems really serious on how proud he is that he's given over that bus pass, so Elsie can sit on it all day long, keeping warm, because she can't afford to keep her house warm or put food in her belly. That's not even a joke. That is the British Prime Minister suggesting that's a solution to someone who's in their 70s with no money and no means of getting out of that level of poverty because the government won't bail them out.
I've got another example for you. Dan and his wife made you parents, full-time carers of two disabled daughters. For her treatment and to keep her comfortable, the family have a range of different electrical machines used on a daily basis, some of them 24 hours a day. Their energy bills have gone up to £450 a month. What should Dan and Maydew cut back on?
We are looking at particular arrangements to support those who may be using dialysis machines or who may have particular high requirements of electricity because of their medical conditions.
Sounds somewhat reasonable. They're looking into it. They've recognised there's a problem. They're going to try and deal with it.
Because people think, we need money now. Well, the money we have is all...
These families need money now.
They do. and we are doing everything we can to help them. But what
Okay,
we must
sorry.
do,
You've said that a number of times, Prime Minister, and I have to take issue because you've said we're doing everything we can, and yet you've already said we could do more.
Tax, let's just go back to your suggestions. If you put a windfall tax on the energy companies, what that means is that you discourage them from making the investments that we want to see that will, in the end, keep energy prices lower for everybody.
What a joke. The British Prime Minister is justifying sacrificing members of the British public so that energy firms can have bumper profits, with no guarantee of how they'll spend the money. Will it be investing in energy? Or will it be a pay rise, dividends, maybe a combination of all three? We don't know, because it's up to the companies to make a decision about those profits. And the Prime Minister knows that.
Dan and Maydew are on a carer's allowance. Do you know how much the carer's allowance went up per week back in April?
I can imagine.
Do you know
I can't give you the figure, but I can imagine that it was not enough in the short term to cope with the costs.
Their carer's allowance is £69.70 a week. It went up by just over £2 a week.
General goods and services have increased by about 9 to 10%, depending on who you read. And then on top of that, fuel bills have gone up by 25, 50%. In France, they put caps on all price increases related to electricity of 4%. We haven't done that. Britain hasn't done that yet. It's one of the big advantages of Brexit. We should be able to do that. Let's go back to the CNN interview 3 months later.
Let me give you an example. Thanks to the position that we took, we had an independent medical agency that was able to make sure that the first COVID vaccine in anybody's, first approved COVID vaccine in anybody's arms in the world was in the UK. We then had the fastest vaccine, and that was because we were outside something called the European Medicines Agency.
So if you admit you couldn't have done it if otherwise?
Correct, Mundo.
Okay.
Yes.
A complete lie. Under the European law, the UK was permitted to act independently to approve the vaccine in an emergency, and a pandemic shock is an emergency.
Secondly, we've been able to do a lot of free trade deals around the world.
This is the Financial Times, which stated that the UK had failed to demonstrate benefit of post-Brexit trade deals. Now that's quite interesting, because obviously Boris has just said there were loads of great trade deals. And 2 of those key trade deals went with Australia and New Zealand, and both have been a deficit to the UK but a benefit to Australia and New Zealand.
We're able to change some of our regulations.
That's absolutely right. As a result of Brexit, we can now have high-powered vacuum cleaners, high-powered washing machines. You can even get rid of those bats that live in the belfry, even though they're endangered species. And of course, you can have any plug or wire that you like, because we don't have to give a damn about the environment. And if you want a real big bonus and you're in politics, you also get rid of all those pesky checks and balances. I want to say a big thank you to all my YouTube and Patreon supporters who help this channel grow and keep on going. If you'd like to become a Patreon or a YouTube supporter, or if you'd just like to buy me a one-off coffee, please click the links in the description, or click for free the like and subscribe button. It helps generate more views for my channel, which allows me to buy coffee, which allows me to stay up making more videos like this. But on top of all of that, on a more serious note, we also now have issues with the United Kingdom itself and the potential for it to separate, both up in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Ever since Brexit took place, Northern Ireland has become more and more dangerous, with rioting taking place because communities are upset, either being pushed towards Ireland or being pushed back towards the UK. Scotland had also announced that it's going to be having a referendum in October 2023. This knackered the British pound, sinking it even further, wrecking our purchasing power, all because Scotland wanted to stay within the EU and England wanted to leave.
So we've taken back control of our borders.
At least 430 migrants crossed the English Channel to the UK yesterday, according to the Home Office, a new record for a single day.
Whilst in the EU, Britain had the ability to send illegal migrants back to their country of origin inside the EU.
We're no longer spending shed loads of money on projects that we couldn't control.
Simply not true. Britain had access to the Horizon project, which allowed for funding to take place within the UK and for UK science groups and scientists to use that money in any way means necessary to achieve their goals within their scientific studies. This is now completely dried up, in part because Britain and the EU are having a massive argument as to what to do with Northern Ireland. And of course, if you haven't got these scientists coming over to the UK, and these scientists who are in the UK don't have access to these huge funds, which the British government isn't replacing, it means that we're going to have a brain drain, and that those scientists, and we've already seen studies, are now starting to move into the EU. So let's actually discuss Bojo and Trumpo, because this is where it's going to get interesting. And let's start off where Boris Johnson was born. He's actually American.
But you were born in the United States, and until recently
I was.
And
I was born in New York City.
Now, Boris rescinded that passport, but he was born in New York, and again, this is another little tie-in with everything that I was talking about. Now, let's have a listen to what he has to say in regards to American politics and what's recently taken place in the United States with this attack on democracy by Donald Trump.
when I talk to friends in Canada, the UK, Australia, and elsewhere, people express concern about the United States about the United States in terms of our ability and our institutions to thrive and continue after what happened with the election of 2020. They worry that democracy is on life support. Are you worried at all? Do you look?
No, I want to say this to the people of the United States. I'm not. I think that I just get back to what I've been trying to say to you throughout this interview. I think that reports of the death of democracy in the United States are grossly exaggerated.
So this is where I'm going to bring in the link between Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. You are going to see Boris Johnson, who's just really gotten involved in internal politics in the United States, talk about this situation thinking it's no big deal. Then have a listen to how he describes January 6th.
Weird and kind of unattractive scenes back in the,
People died. I mean, it was pretty serious.
It was pretty weird. I won't deny that.
It was worse than weird. I mean,
looking from the outside, it was pretty weird. But I don't believe that American democracy is under serious threat.
It wasn't weird, it was outright dangerous, and it was a clear attempted coup by the president on Congress. And if it had succeeded, we would be seeing a very different America, and arguably it was close to succeeding. If Bojo's uncle Trumpo had managed to make his way down to the Congress building, anything could have happened. And frankly, this move from Donald Trump is straight out the playbook of Adolf Hitler in the 1920s, who also attempted a coup.
Joe Biden talks about the world in terms of autocracies and democracies, and this is the big struggle. You talk about it that way as well. He also talks about the United States as going through that struggle, and he sees Donald Trump as autocratic, as somebody who didn't respect the will of the people, who there are hearings going on right now, I know you're familiar with them, bipartisan hearings about all the ways that Donald Trump tried to undo the election, undo democracy.
Jake, I'm going to take the fifth on this because...
For all of you who don't know what the fifth is, it means you can't implicate yourself in court for a crime. Although I think in this case Boris has changed the meaning, and he's tried to suggest that actually it just means he's not going to answer the question.
This is, you know, the convention in...
You don't have a fifth.
He just got burnt. However, this is really strange because the guy knows he was born in America, so he's an American citizen. He does have the right to the fifth. But then listen to how Boris defends himself.
I was born in New York.
So this is just twisting and turning everywhere. So he's going to defend himself and the right to use the fifth, and he does that by mentioning the fact that he was born in New York, making him an American citizen. But then he backtracks, and he actually says, we shouldn't get involved in American politics, and I'm going to show you something at the end that completely scuppers all of this. And to be honest, to me, it looks like he's defending Donald Trump, or he's learned from previous mistakes and doesn't want to slag off a potential candidate for president.
Principle, we shouldn't talk about each other's domestic politics, and that's for the people of the US.
So he's not going to slag off Donald Trump, but of course he's also going to say, well, he is an American citizen, but he just defended himself for being an American citizen. But wait till you hear this on Roe v. Wade.
When it comes to Roe Wade, I think that's an unfortunate decision. I think it marks a step backwards. I've always been in favour of a woman's right to choose, and that's what we have in UK law, and we've actually just taken steps to make sure that that's the way the law is enforced across the whole of the UK.
It to me sounds like he's trying to defend Trump. I'm not so convinced that he's actually learned from his mistakes in the past about slagging off presidents. I'm going to show some funny clips in a second. Because in the past, Boris has slagged off Obama to the point where, well, let's have a listen to what some of these journalists had to say about it.
I don't think it's just the case that Boris Johnson is distrusted by the Biden administration, although I certainly think that that's true. But he is also actively disliked. And he's disliked... No, this is a serious point. I'm not making a flippant point. And he's disliked because of the way that they perceive him to have been racist in his treatment of Obama.
And that's simply down to the fact that Boris made racist allegations about Obama not liking Britain and its empire because his dad had been tortured by British soldiers during the 1950s. And it's interesting as well because both Boris and Biden have been meeting recently at a G7 event, and quite frankly it was a bit frosty and Boris was just left hanging. I mean, look at the picture. Who fist bumps without at least giving some eye contact? It's really bizarre, but there's also like a grimacing face. It's so strange. And of course, the carry on, he gets up, he tries to shake the hand of the president just totally ignores him. You could think that was just one off, but actually there was another, and it looked pretty forceful from Biden. So the president of Turkey is there with President Biden and Boris, and the president makes fun of Boris, and Boris then puts his finger up and points at the president. Now you might not know this, but Boris actually has a bit of Turkish heritage and seems to have a bit of Turkish as a language, and says, very good, towards the president of Turkey. But look at Biden's arm grabbing him and just throwing it away. Based on all of those events throughout the week, it definitely seems that Boris has a bit of a soft heart for Donald Trump, despite past histories. It's interesting to see as well how much he's really hated on the international scene, and you can just see it through the body language of the President of the United States. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.